What's up, Vikings Nation? Lock in right now because the early offseason just threw us one of the biggest storylines yet, and it directly affects the heart and soul of this Minnesota Vikings defense. There's a lot of noise, a lot of rumors, and a lot of emotions flying around about one man. Brian Flores, defensive mastermind, tone setter, culture changer. And right now, the entire league is watching to see if he stays in Minnesota or jumps back into the head coaching spotlight. So take a breath, grab your purple gear, and stay with me until the end, because this story has twists, leverage, and massive implications for the Vikings' future. Vikings fans, for more than a week now, the question hasn't stopped echoing across Minnesota. Is Brian Flores coming back? Or is this goodbye? Every scroll on social media, every headline, every insider whisper keeps poking at the same nerve. The uncertainty feels heavier because Flores didn't just coach this defense, he transformed it. He brought aggression, discipline, and an identity that opponents feared. Losing him wouldn't just mean a new coordinator, it would mean starting over. And that's why this moment matters so much. This isn't just another assistant coach rumor. This is about continuity, belief, and whether the Minnesota Vikings can keep their defensive architect in the building. Let's rewind for a second and paint the picture. Brian Flores on the sideline, eyes locked in, headset buzzing, adjusting coverages on the fly. We've seen it in Chicago, in Los Angeles, at US Bank Stadium. The man lives inside the chess match. Under Flores, the Vikings defense became one of the most aggressive units in the NFL. Blitz packages everywhere. Confusion for quarterbacks. Pressure that never let up. Minnesota wasn't just reacting anymore. They were dictating. That's why his future has become such a massive talking point. When you build something real, everyone else wants a piece of it. Early reports suggested Flores might be eyeing a return to the head coaching ranks. That alone sent Vikings fans into panic mode. And honestly, you can't blame anyone for assuming that. Flores has already been a head coach. He won games in Miami. He earned respect across the league. On paper, he checks every box for teams looking for leadership and defensive dominance. But here's where things start getting interesting, because new information suggests the door to Minnesota is still wide open. According to respected league insider Mike Florio, there's growing belief that Brian Flores could return to the Vikings if he doesn't land a head coaching job this cycle. That detail alone changes everything. Not speculation, not fan hope. Actual reporting indicating that continuity in Minnesota is a real option Flores values. That tells us something powerful. This isn't just a stepping stone for him. There's mutual trust, alignment, and unfinished business here with the Vikings. Florio pointed out something crucial about the timing. Assistant coaching contracts usually run through the Super Bowl, meaning Flores is technically in a waiting period. He's free to explore, but not rushing anything. Behind the scenes, the Vikings are confident. Confident enough that some believe there may already be a tentative understanding in place, waiting until Flores finishes exploring every head coaching opportunity. That's not desperation. That's patience. And that's the kind of stability winning franchises operate with. Now let's address some of the rumors that started flying around the league. One of the loudest involved a possible reunion with familiar faces from the Patriots coaching tree. Stories circulated about potential interest from teams connected to former New England figures, especially where Tom Brady has influence. It sounds flashy, and it grabs attention, but right now it remains nothing more than speculation. No confirmed interviews, no official offers, just league chatter doing what it always does in January. Here's the reality check that matters most. Despite all the buzz, Brian Flores has only been linked to limited confirmed head coaching interests so far. That's not an insult. It's a fact. Teams may admire him, but admiration doesn't always turn into interviews. Front offices move cautiously, especially with complex situations. And Flores' situation is complex, whether people want to admit it or not. One unavoidable factor is Flores' ongoing lawsuit against the NFL and multiple franchises. Legally, it should not affect his candidacy. In theory, it shouldn't matter at all. But in practice, NFL hiring is rarely that clean. Teams weigh optics, comfort, and internal politics. Qualified candidates outnumber available jobs every single year. That reality doesn't diminish Flores' talent, but it does shape the landscape he's navigating. Oddsmakers have even thrown gasoline on the fire, listing Flores as an early favorite for certain openings. Sportsbooks love drama, and fans love reading into odds. But odds are not interviews. Odds are not contracts. And odds don't guarantee anything. Until teams actually sit down with Flores, everything remains fluid. Another angle that popped up was the idea of Flores making a lateral move to another defensive coordinator role. Big money, big title, different city. Let's be real. That scenario makes very little sense. Flores has leverage. He has options. And he has a defense in Minnesota built specifically around his philosophy. Walking away from that just to coordinate elsewhere would feel like hitting reset for no reason. Which brings us back to the most logical outcome of all. If Flores doesn't secure a head coaching job, the Minnesota Vikings remain the most stable, familiar, and powerful option. This is where his system works. This is where his voice carries weight. This is where his players believe in him. And from the Vikings' perspective, keeping Flores would be a massive offseason win. Think about what continuity means for this defense. Young players developing within the same scheme. Veterans mastering it. Communication improving year over year. You don't rebuild that overnight. You protect it. The Vikings aren't just hoping Flores stays. They're positioning themselves as the best possible place for him to continue building something special. So here we are, Vikings fans, standing at the crossroads of speculation and reality. The noise is loud, but the facts are starting to settle. Brian Flores hasn't left. The Vikings haven't panicked. And the door remains wide open for a return. This story is far from over, but for the first time this offseason, Minnesota has real reason for optimism. Now I want to hear from you. Do you believe Brian Flores stays with the Minnesota Vikings? Would keeping him be the biggest offseason win possible? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Smash that like button if you love Vikings defense. Subscribe for non-stop Minnesota Vikings news, and share this with every fan who bleeds purple. Skol, Vikings Nation.